The stars shimmered above the virulent neutral zone, a wide silver desert lit by two pale moons. The land was quiet, peaceful but tense. It had been like this for years. Humans and virulons did not fight, but they did not talk either. There. History was full of fear, pride, and silence. Lieutenant Daniel Reeves stood near the ramp of his small Earth Alliance shuttle. His boots crunched on the fine silver sand as he looked at the approaching Virulon guards. He wore the blue and black uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. With a silver badge of peace on his chest, the Virulons came in full ceremonial armor tall. Lean figures, faces hidden behind smooth silver masks. They moved in perfect lines, not one out of step. They carried no weapons, but Daniel knew they didn't need any. Virulons were trained to fight with precision, trained to feel nothing and obey everything. Leading them was Commander Sorella Viewer. Her armor was different, sharper, more elegant, and marked with glowing purple lines. She stopped in front of Daniel and raised her hand in a formal salute. "Lieutenant Reeve," she said, her voice calm and cold through her mask. "Welcome to the edge of virulent space. You are expected to follow all protocol. Any failure will result in immediate removal." Daniel smiled, friendly but careful. "Understood, Commander. I'm here to build trust, not to break rules." Her mask tilted slightly, studying him. "We shall see." Daniel was escorted through a glass-like dome built into the desert floor. Inside, everything was clean, quiet, and glowing with soft blue lights. He was shown his room, then taken to a briefing with Sorella. They sat across from each other in a round room with a map of both star systems projected between them. "We share this neutral zone," Sorella said, "but we do not share values." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "We're not so different. Both want peace." "No," Sorella said simply. "You want noise? You want feeling? We want order." Daniel leaned forward slightly. "You think emotions are dangerous?" "They are," Sorella replied. "They weaken logic. They blur judgment. People survived because we left such chaos behind." Daniel didn't argue. He knew pushing too hard would make her shut down, so instead, he smiled lightly. "I'm not here to change you," he said. "I just want to understand you." Over the next few days, Daniel observed the Virulon base. Everything was perfect, quiet, controlled, cold. The people moved like machines. No laughter, no expression, no mistakes. Even the children were serious. But Daniel's warmth drew attention. Some of the younger Virulons began to follow him with curious eyes. He told them stories from Earth about oceans, music, sports, and families. He showed them how to laugh by tossing a small ball that bounced in odd directions. They gasped, then giggled, and stopped, embarrassed. Commander Sorella watched this. From a distance, she said nothing at first, but everything changed on the fourth day. Daniel was walking with Sorella through the central hall when a loud, cracking sound echoed above them. A glass panel, weakened by a recent tremor, broke free. A young virulent child was directly below it, without thinking. Daniel sprinted forward and threw himself over the child just as the panel crashed down. Shards hit his back and shoulder. Pain bloomed across his skin, but the child was unharmed. Virulent guards rushed in, shocked and confused. Sorella knelt beside him, her voice sharp but quiet. "You should not have done that," she said, her hand resting on his bleeding arm. Daniel winced but smiled. "Would you rather I let the kid get crushed?" "That is not your responsibility," she replied. He looked at her eyes, tired but kind. It was the human thing to do. For a long moment, Sorella was silent. Then she whispered so only he could hear, "It's not proper. Your behavior, your closeness." But she didn't pull her hand away from his arm, and when he looked up, he noticed her mask had a small crack right near her eye. Later that night, Daniel sat on his bed, bandaged but thoughtful. A soft chime sounded. He opened the door and found Sorella standing there, still in armor, but without her helmet. It was the first time he saw her face, smooth, sharp, beautiful in a calm way. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes held questions. "I came too. Check your condition," she said. He nodded. "I'm fine. Just a few scratches." There was silence. She looked around his room. pictures of Earth landscapes. Small. Items of no real value. You carry useless things, she said. They remind me who I am, Daniel replied. They make me feel. That is what we were trained to forget. He studied her for a moment. Do you ever wonder what it would be like if your people had chosen differently? Sarala looked down. Her fingers touched the crack in her shoulder armor. Sometimes, she said, but only in silence. Only when no one can hear. Daniel didn't speak, didn't need to. In that moment, her armor, though still worn, felt lighter. The next day, a meeting was held between Daniel and the Virulent Council representative via hololink. Sorella stood beside him, her posture perfect. The council's hologram flickered into view. Commander Sorella explained the incident involving the human and the youngling. Sorella hesitated for only a breath. He acted against protocol. She said, but he saved a life. Do you approve of such impulsiveness? Sorella glanced at Daniel. I do not approve of recklessness, she said, but I recognize courage. There was a pause. The council ended the meeting without further words. When they were alone, Daniel turned to her. That wasn't easy to say, was it? No, Sorella admitted, but truth is never easy. That evening, they walked outside, into the silver desert beneath the twin moons. The sand shimmered beneath their boots. Sorella removed her helmet once more. Her hair was braided in the traditional virulon, way precise and strong. Daniel picked up a small, carved wooden pendant from his pocket. He handed it to her. It's a token from my home. It means connection. She took it carefully, like it might break. I should not accept this, she said. But you already did, he smiled. Her lips twitched almost a smile. For a long moment they stood in silence. The desert wind around them. Then she whispered. Again, it's not proper, ... but her voice was softer this time, and she didn't give it back. The morning after the pendant gift, the air inside the virulent dome felt heavier. The halls were still quiet, the walls still glowing softly, but something had changed. Daniel could feel it. He walked down the corridor toward the learning chambers. Several virulent children were gathered there, seated in perfect rows. Their faces were calm, but their eyes flicked toward him with quiet curiosity. Daniel stepped closer and smiled. Anyone up for a story from Earth? One child raised her hand shyly. Only if it's about water, she said. We don't have oceans here, Daniel laughed. Then you'll love this one. He knelt beside them and began telling a tale about giant waves, colorful fish, and sea creatures that danced under the moonlight.
Ow.
The children listened with wide eyes and silent awe. Some even smiled, but the moment was broken when two elder virulons entered the chamber. Their expressions turned hard when they saw the children laughing quietly. One of them spoke. Lieutenant Reeve. Your stories distract our youth from discipline. This is not acceptable. Daniel stood up slowly. They're just learning about another culture. Isn't that the point of my visit? Not if it corrupts their purpose? The elder said sharply, You are too, ... expressive. That evening, Daniel sat alone in the garden dome, watching the twin moons rise. The desert outside shimmered with soft silver light. He could still hear the quiet voices of the elders warning him. Is he doing more harm than good? Footsteps echoed behind him. Didn't turn. He already knew who it was. Trouble again. Sorella said quietly, standing beside him. I only told a story, Daniel replied. Didn't think that was a crime. It is not a crime, she said, sitting beside him. But it is dangerous. He glanced at her. Dangerous to teach kids to feel wonder. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked up at the moons. In our world, children are taught to serve, not dream, Sorella said. Emotion leads to error. It clouds choices. And yet, Daniel said softly, You listened to my story too. Sorella turned to him, eyes steady. Yes, I. Did days pass? Daniel continued his work, attending meetings, observing local customs, and sharing carefully chosen parts of human culture. The younger generation began to whisper about him. Some called him strange, others called him brave. Even some adults came to listen when he spoke, though they pretended not to care. And Sorella. She changed. She started asking questions. Quiet ones. Private ones. She asked about music, laughter, colors, and feelings. She listened as Daniel spoke about Earth's holidays, the sound of rain, and why humans cry at stories. Why do your people show sadness? She asked one night during a quiet walk. What is the purpose? It connects us, Daniel replied. When we share pain, it makes it lighter. And when we share joy, it becomes stronger. She nodded slowly. That is not how we live. We carry pain alone. We bury it. Daniel looked at her. And does it stay buried? She said nothing. Daniel brought her a gift. It was a small cube, no bigger than a fist, with a glowing crystal inside. When pressed, it played a soft melody. A human lullaby. Sorella held it carefully. The music was slow, sad, and beautiful. This is used for younglings, she asked. For comfort, Daniel said. Sometimes for memories, too. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she said something Daniel never expected. When I was a child, I cried once. My mother saw me and turned away. She said nothing. That was the last time I allowed myself to feel. Daniel's heart tightened. I'm sorry, he said. Sorella shook her head. It made me strong. It made me a leader. Strength doesn't mean silence, he said gently. She looked down at the cube, her fingers lightly touching the glowing crystal. Then, in a soft voice, she said, Perhaps I no longer know what strength means. Rumors began to spread across the base. Commander Sorella spends too much time with the human. She smiles when she thinks no one is watching. She refuses invitations to the high circle. Some said she was breaking tradition. Others said she was falling to human influence. But Sorella didn't change her actions. She continued meeting Daniel, continued asking questions, and even began wearing lighter armor in less formal settings. One evening, she invited him to a Skywalker high-glass bridge that stretched across the domed ceiling. Below them, the lights of the city glowed. Above them, the stars were clear and bright. I was taught that stars are only coordinates, she said as they walked slowly. Points to be mapped, studied, used. Daniel looked up. I was taught they were wishes. Sorella turned to him, a hint of amusement in her eyes. Wishes? Yeah, he smiled. When I was a kid, I'd look up and wish for things. Peace, adventure, someone to understand me. She was silent for a moment. Then softly she said, And did it work? He looked at her. Maybe. Their steps slowed. The silence between them grew warm. Then Sorella said, almost to herself, In our world, feeling is weakness, but around you, it's different. Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he simply walked beside her. The stars reflected in the glass beneath their feet. The next day, Daniel received a message from Earth Command. The trial period of the mission would soon end. A decision would be made on whether to continue. Diplomatic relations or withdraw. He knew what that meant. Time was running out. As he stepped into the briefing room for his final summary meeting, Sorella was already there. She wore formal armor against shining, perfect, unreadable. Back to tradition? Daniel asked gently. It is required for official matters, she said, but her voice was soft. After the meeting, as the others left, Sorella stepped close to him. I have been warned, she said. There are whispers. They say I've changed. Have you? Daniel asked. She hesitated. Then she said, I feel more now. I understand more, but I also fear more. What do you fear? That understanding you may mean losing who I was. Daniel reached into his pocket and gently handed her the pendant she had once accepted. She had returned it earlier under pressure. This is still yours, he said. You're not losing anything. You're becoming more. Took it. She held it tight in her hand. And for the first time, without her mask, without armor, she smiled. Just a little, but enough. For the first time in her life, Commander Sorella Vire didn't know how to hide her feelings. She had been trained from birth to stay calm, to think with her head, not her heart. But now, that calm was slipping slowly. Quietly and it had started, with one human, Lieutenant Daniel Reeve. Every step he took, every word he spoke, was like a quiet wind that slowly chipped away at the wall around her. A wall she had always believed was necessary. But now, she wasn't so sure. The rumors had grown louder. Some officers now refused to look her in the eye. Others whispered behind her back. She knew what they were saying. The commander is showing emotion. She is influenced by the human. She has forgotten who we are. One morning, she entered the training hall and found two of her junior officers sparring with extra aggression. Their movements were sharp, fast, but filled with frustration. She stepped forward. "Control your energy," she said. "Precision is more important than power." One of the officers paused and asked bluntly, "Is that what the human taught you?" The room went still. Sorella stared at him. Her voice was calm, but there was fire in her eyes. "Lieutenant Reeve is a guest. He is not your enemy." "But he is changing you, Commander." Sorella stepped forward. "Change is not weakness." The officer looked down, but the damage was done. The doubt had spread. Sorella knew the High Council would hear about it soon. Meanwhile, Daniel continued his work as usual. He met with young Varellans, taught them about Earth, and answered their quiet, curious questions. He smiled often and listened even more, but even he could feel the cold air of judgment. One day he noticed the children were more distant. One of the older girls who used to laugh at his jokes now looked away. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Gently they told us not to speak to you," she whispered. "They said, you are making us soft." Daniel's smile faded. Later that evening, he found Sorella in the observation tower. She was alone, her armor half removed, eyes watching the stars. "They're afraid," he said softly. She didn't turn. "Yes, of me, of you, of what we're becoming." Daniel stepped closer. "You're not doing anything wrong?" Sorella's fingers tightened on the edge of the railing. "They say I've lost control. I've betrayed Virellan values." "Have you?" "I don't know anymore," she said. "I know I've changed, and I'm not sure if I can go back." Daniel placed a hand on the railing beside hers. "Maybe going back isn't the answer. Maybe you're just moving forward." She turned to him, her voice quiet. "And if I'm walking alone, you're not," he said. "I'm here. Maybe others will follow." The next day, everything changed. The High Council sent a message. Commander Sorella was to return to the home world for questioning. A replacement would be sent to take over the diplomatic mission. It was a polite message, but everyone knew what it meant. Sorella was being removed. Daniel confronted the messenger, tall official in full golden armor. "You're removing her because she dared to feel?" he asked. "This is not your concern, Lieutenant," the official replied. "You are a guest. Nothing more. I saved one of your children. I've followed your rules. And now you want to silence the one person here who's tried to build peace?" The official gave him a long, cold look. "Peace is built on strength, not on emotion." Daniel turned away, his jaw tight. He had seen injustice before. But this felt personal that night. Sorella came to Daniel's quarters. She wore civilian clothes, simple, soft fabric, instead of hard armor. Her hair was unbraided, her face bare. She looked younger, more human. "I'm being recalled," she said quietly. "I leave at first light." Daniel's heart dropped. "I know." They stood in silence for a long time. Finally, Sorella said, "I thought I could walk between two worlds. Maybe that was foolish." "No," Daniel said firmly. "You saw a better path. It takes courage." She met his gaze. "They will take my command, maybe even my name. But not what I've learned." "Then take this too," he said, and handed her a small book. Poems from Earth. About change. About hope. Sorella held the book like it was something sacred. Then suddenly, she stepped forward and placed something in his hand. It was her shoulder armor piece, engraved with her personal crest. "I cannot wear it anymore," she said. "But maybe you can keep it safe." Daniel nodded, eyes burning. Neither of them said goodbye. But Sorella didn't leave the next morning. Instead, she appeared in the central dome, standing before the gathered officers and citizens. Her voice was clear, her posture tall, but she wore no armor. "I stand here not as a commander," she said, "but as a Virulon who has seen more than protocol allows." Whispers filled the hall. She raised her voice. "I have not betrayed my people. I've found something that makes us stronger understanding." One elder stepped forward. "You show weakness." "No," Sorella replied. "I show strength. I show truth." She walked to the center, then slowly removed the rest of her armor piece by piece placing it on the floor. The last to come. Off was her crest badge. She stood in silence. "I am still Virulon," she said, "but I will no longer hide behind metal." The hall was quiet. Then one young officer stepped forward. She removed her own helmet, then another and another. Not everyone followed, but enough did. A movement had begun. Daniel watched it all from the edge of the crowd. He felt a strange mix of pride and awe. He had come here to build peace, but something greater had started. Sorella walked to him after the gathering. She was tired but calm. "They didn't arrest you," Daniel said. "They still might," she replied, "but not today." He smiled. "You were amazing." Sorella looked at him. "I only spoke what I believed. It was you who helped me believe it." She held out her hand. Not in a military salute, but simply to hold. Daniel took it. In the heart of a quiet alien world surrounded by watchers both curious and unsure, a human and a Virulon stood side by side with no armor between them, and for the first time in 100 years, a small seed of peace had been planted. The news traveled fast across the stars. Commander Sorella Vir, once the most respected officer in the Virulon border zone, had stood without armor, spoken about emotion, and had defended a human publicly. To some, it was betrayal. To others, it was bravery. But to the High Council of Virel, it was a crisis. A message was sent. Sorella was to appear in front of the council tower for official questioning. No delay, no excuses. Daniel Reeves stood with Sorella as she read the summons. "They're not just calling you home," he said. "They're trying to silence what you started." "I know," Sorella replied, folding the message. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were full of thought. "If I stay quiet, maybe they will let me live a quiet life again. But then all this would mean nothing." Daniel stepped closer. "You don't have to face them alone." Sorella looked at him with soft strength. "You're not Virulon. They won't allow you to speak." "Then I'll stand in the back," he said, "but I will stand with you." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then quietly she reached for his hand. "Thank you." The journey to the Virulon capital was quiet and tense. The city was built on wide glowing platforms in the clouds, with silver towers reaching into the sky like blades. Everything was clean, sharp, and silent, just as Sorella remembered. But this time, she wasn't wearing her armor. Daniel walked. Beside her, dressed in formal Earth diplomatic uniform, he carried the small Virulon shoulder plate Sorella had once given him, now hidden inside his jacket. At the tower gates, officials blocked his way. "This is a Virulon matter," they said, coldly. "The human must wait outside." Sorella turned. "He is not just a human. He is part of this truth." "He is not allowed," they repeated. Daniel nodded calmly. "I'll be here when you come out." Sorella gave him a long, meaningful look, then stepped inside. The council chamber was vast, circular, and filled with light that shifted as the speakers moved. The 12 high counselors sat on tall chairs around the edges, their faces hidden behind crystal masks. In the center stood a single platform, bare and cold. Sorella stepped onto it without fear. A voice spoke. "Commander Sorella Vir, you have been summoned to answer charges of cultural disruption, disrespect of command traditions, and emotional compromise." Sorella raised her head. "I understand. You removed your armor in public." "Yes. You supported foreign ideas, emotions. Personal bonds, softness." "Yes. You encouraged others to follow." "I did not force anyone. They chose to listen." "Do you deny that you've been influenced by the human?" Sorella paused. "No. I do not deny it." A wave of murmurs swept across the room. Outside the tower, Daniel paced near the edge of the platform. Virulent civilians passed by, staring at him with mixed expressions: curiosity, worry, even anger. But no one spoke. Suddenly, a young virulent boy ran up to him. "Are you the one who saved Kelia?" he asked. Daniel blinked. "The child in the dome, yes?" The boy looked around, then whispered, "She says you told stories." Music. Daniel smiled. "That's right. My brother says you made the commander brave," the boy added. "Is that true?" Daniel's smile faded a little. "No, she was always brave. I just reminded her." The boy nodded, then ran off. Daniel looked up at the tall tower again, hoping she could feel his support through the walls. Inside, the questioning continued. "What made you trust the human?" asked one counselor. "He showed kindness without expecting reward," Sorella answered. "He listened. He respected our customs, but shared his own. And that makes him ... worthy? It makes him human," she said. "And in his humanity, I saw what we had lost." Another counselor leaned forward. "Are you ashamed of being virulent?" Soralen's voice did not shake. "No, I am proud of who I am, but pride without reflection becomes blindness." The light in the room dimmed for a moment. Then the lead counselor stood. "You may speak freely your final statement." Sorella stepped forward. Her voice echoed through the dome. "From the day we are born, we are told to be silent, to obey, to remove feeling from our hearts. We believed it kept us strong. But strength without compassion leads to emptiness. I do not say we must become human. I say we must allow ourselves to grow. We have lost too much by hiding behind coldness. We must remember how to feel, not to weaken, but to understand." She paused. "I still believe in the virulent way. But I also believe in a new way, one that includes both thought and heart." She stepped back. The council chamber fell into silence. Hours later, the council emerged. Daniel waited anxiously near the base of the tower. The lead counselor spoke into a floating recorder. "The commander's position will be suspended. Her armor title is withdrawn.
Ow.
But she will not be punished." Daniel let out a quiet breath of relief. "She will no longer serve in the military," the voice added, "but she may serve in diplomacy if she chooses." The door opened behind them. Sorella stepped out, still unarmored, still calm. But this time, her face held something new. Peace. Daniel walked toward her. "They didn't arrest you," he said. "No," she replied. "They listened." He smiled. "What now?" "They offered me a new role," she said. "Diplomatic contact to Earth. A bridge between our people." Daniel's eyes lit up. "You're taking it?" "I will, but only if I'm not walking alone," he laughed. "You won't be," she smiled. Good. Back in the neutral zone dome, a quiet celebration took place. It wasn't loud or wild, but something new was in the air. Warmth. Young Virellans gathered in the main hall, where Daniel played soft music from Earth. Sorella stood beside him, wearing a simple cloak. Her armor was gone, but her strength had never been brighter. A small crowd clapped gently after a short Earth poem was read. Then a young officer stood up. She hesitated, then spoke aloud. "When I removed my helmet, I thought I was alone. Now I see we were waiting for someone to lead." Everyone turned to Sorella. She nodded, grateful but humble. "I only followed what I felt was right. Now it's your turn." Later, Daniel and Sorella walked alone in the moonlit garden. He reached into his jacket and gave her back the shoulder plate. "I kept it safe," he said. She took it. Her fingers traced the symbol of her old command. "I may never wear it again." She whispered, "But it's part of your story," Daniel said. "Don't forget who you were. Just add who you are now." Sorella looked at him, eyes full of thought and calm fire. "I used to say it's not proper," she said softly. Daniel smiled. "And now I say, maybe it's time we change what proper means." The sky over the neutral zone was different now, not because of storms or suns or stars, but because of people. Something had changed deep inside the hearts of both species. There was still caution, Still rules, but also something new. Hope, Sarah, La. Vieira walked through the glass corridor of the dome without armor. Her steps were confident, yet peaceful. The Vieiralan guards still wore helmets, but many had removed the face shields. Some even nodded when she passed. Just days ago, such a gesture would have been unthinkable. But Sorella had become something rare. A Vieiralan, chose a new path and survived. In the main hall, Earth's diplomatic flag now stood next to the Vieiralan crest. Yes. A joint team of ambassadors worked side by side, talking, listening, translating words that once had no meaning in the other's language. Words like joy, words like regret, words like friend. At the center of it all was Lieutenant Daniel Reeve, the first human to be fully accepted inside the Vieiralan zone. He was no longer just a guest. He was part of the process now. Today was special. A new agreement would be signed, a small one, about cultural exchange and education. But it meant the beginning of trust. Daniel stood near the platform waiting. His hair was neatly combed, his blue diplomatic coat pressed clean. But his eyes searched for someone else. She arrived exactly on time, Sorella. She wore a light silver robe, the Vieiralan symbol stitched across the shoulder, not a sign of rank, but of identity. The old armor was gone, but something stronger had taken its place. She walked up beside him and smiled gently. "Are you ready for history?" she asked. Daniel grinned. "Only if you're standing with me." The ceremony was calm, full of formal words and respectful silence. Vieiralan leaders and Earth delegates shook hands, exchanged vows, and placed a glowing crystal at the center of the table, symbol of peaceful light. Then Sorella stepped forward to speak. "I was trained to hide emotion," she began. "What?" "Today, I speak from the heart." She told a short story about a lost child, a human's brave act, and the quiet gift of a small wooden pendant. She spoke of what she had learned, that strength does not only come from silence, but from understanding, and when she finished, she looked at Daniel and said, "He only wanted to help, and in doing so, he helped change everything." There was quiet applause. Few Vieiralans even stood. That night, under the twin moons, Daniel and Sorella walked through the outer gardens. The stars above shimmered like soft lanterns. "I never asked," Daniel said, "when you removed your armor. Did you ever regret it?" Sorella was quiet for a moment. Then she answered. "Not once," she said. "It felt like shedding stone, heavy and cold. I feel air on my skin, light in my steps." "But you lost so much," he said. "Your title, your command. I gained more," she said gently. "A new purpose, a clearer voice, and someone who never gave up on me." She looked at him, eyes full of quiet warmth. Daniel hesitated, then reached into his coat and pulled out the shoulder plate, once again the piece of her old armor. "I kept this," he said. "I thought maybe one day you'd want it back." Sorella took it slowly. She turned it over in her hands. It was worn, scratched, but still strong. She smiled. "Maybe I will not wear it," she said, "but I will not hide it either." Then she bent slightly and placed it on the nearby stone bench, uninvisible for all to see. A symbol not of what she left behind, but of what she had chosen. Weeks passed. The neutral zone turned into a shared zone. A new center was built, a learning hub where Vieiralans and humans taught each other language, arts, science, and customs. Sorella took the role of cultural guide. Daniel served as a bridge between the Earth's Alliance and Vieiralan Council. Together, they helped write new chapters in a book that had once been blank. The younger Vieiralans were the quickest to accept the change. Some smiled freely now. Some even wrote stories of their own, inspired by Earth legends and Vieiralan stars. And among them, Sorella was a quiet hero. One morning, Sorella visited the learning center and saw a group of children drawing pictures. Had drawn a Vieiralan woman and a human man standing together under the twin moons. She paused. "That's us," said a small voice behind her. She turned and saw a child, Kelia, the one Daniel had saved so long ago. Sorella smiled. "It's a good drawing." "I added the pendant," the child said, pointing to the necklace in the picture, the one he gave you. Sorella touched her chest, where she still wore the small wooden pendant on a simple chain. I never take it off, she said. Later. That day, Daniel and Sorella stood together at the edge of the dome, watching a shuttle land. A group of new humans stepped out, students, scientists, explorers, and among them were a few virulins, guiding them, welcoming them. Daniel turned. To Sorella, did you ever think we'd get here? She shook her head. No, but I'm glad we did. He watched her quietly. You know, the first time we met, you said, it's not proper. Sorella laughed softly. Yes, I remember. I was very serious back then. You still are, he teased. Only when necessary, she replied with a smile. They stood in silence for a moment then. Daniel said, so what do you say now? Sorella looked at the stars, then at him, and she whispered, it's still not proper, but maybe that's a good thing. That night, a small ceremony was held, not official. Not grand, just people Virellans and humans gathering under the open dome, candles glowing around them, music playing gently in the background. At the center stood Daniel and Sorella. There were no vows, no speeches. Just a moment shared between two hearts from different worlds. Sorella reached out and held Daniel's hand in front of everyone. No mask, no armor, no shame, just truth, just connection. And as the stars watched quietly from above, the galaxy shifted a little toward peace, toward feeling, toward something new.